dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Let me get my hooch ready for a big show. On Mark Dolan tonight, reacting to the last day of the Premier League is legendary football manager Harry Redknapp, King of the Jungle. He's here with us at 9:45. In the big question, we're going to have a big debate. Are plus-size models attractive? We'll hear from all sides on that one, including a plus-size model, a dieting expert, and a former Page 3 girl. My Mark Meets guest was a pop star in the 90s, became the queen of fashion, and overcame addiction along the way. Pearl Lowe, mother of model Daisy Lowe, is live at 10. You won't want to miss her incredible story. And in my big opinion, in 2 minutes' time, who runs Britain, Boris Johnson or the unions? A busy and lively show with tomorrow's papers live at 10:30 and panel reaction throughout the programme. Tonight with Mike Porky Parry, Rebecca Jane and Leilani Dowding. I'll see you after the headlines with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The Rail, Maritime and Transport Union has called government plans for a minimum staffing requirement during strikes desperate nonsense. The comment comes as Transport Secretary Grant Shapps told the Sunday Telegraph ministers are considering making industrial action illegal unless an adequate number of staff are still working. The RMT warns any attempt to do so will be met with the fiercest resistance. Former political strategist to Tony Blair, John McTernan, told GB News the Transport Secretary faces an uphill battle.
The rail unions are turning on Grant Shapps. He wants to nationalise the unions. He gets the responsibility of dealing with the pay. You can't have it both ways. He wants Great British Railways. He wants to say he's in charge of the railways. Well, he is in charge. So therefore, he's taken workers in the private sector where they were perfectly capable of bargaining with employers, and now he wants to bargain with them. He wants to give the railway workers the same 1.5% pay deal he's offering to teachers and to nurses and civil servants.
The leader of the DUP says implementing the Northern Ireland Protocol in full would result in an economic tsunami. So Jeffrey Donaldson was responding to a tweet from US Democrat Brendan Boyle stressing the protocol has no unionist support. Meanwhile, UUP leader Doug Beattie also questioned Mr Boyle's understanding of the Belfast Agreement. Discussions have been ongoing since it emerged the government intends to introduce new legislation to remove or change the protocol. Labour's calls for a windfall tax on oil and gas firms have been rejected by 2 cabinet ministers. The Health and Northern Ireland secretaries say the move wouldn't work and would have a long-term impact on businesses. The Prime Minister has not ruled out the move, but says he cannot magic away the cost of living crisis. Greg Marsh, CEO of Nous, which helps families with their finances, told GB News regulators could do more to stop rising energy prices.
We believe that the government will have to do more. We think that there will need to be intercession. One of the things they could do, for instance, is use the existing regulators, Ofcom and Ofgem, who regulates the communications industry and the energy industry, to put more pressure on the regulated providers of energy, the regulated providers of mobile phone services and broadband services, to ensure that those companies aren't increasing their prices above the rate of inflation, which is something many of them are doing.
And Ukrainian soldiers in the Donbass region say they're ready for anything as Russian forces intensify an offensive on the eastern border. It comes as Kyiv ruled out a ceasefire or territorial concessions to Moscow. Russia's defense ministry claims its forces have successfully struck Ukrainian command centers, troops and ammunition depots in Donbass. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight on a jam-packed Sunday night show reacting to the last day of the Premier League, and Man City's title glory is legendary football manager Harry Redknapp. He'll be live at 9:45. You won't want to miss that. In The Big Question, following the comments of best-selling author Jordan Peterson, are plus-size models attractive? Are they an important role model to teach you to love your body, or are they just flag bearers for obesity? We'll hear from all sides on that one, including a plus-size model, a dieting expert and a former Page 3 girl. My Mark Meets guest was a pop star in the 90s. She became the queen of fashion and interior design and overcame addiction along the way. Pearl Lowe, mother of Daisy Lowe, is live just after 10. You won't want to miss her story. In the news agenda with my panel, should employers snoop on workers with cameras and microphones? Also, is the Church of England in terminal decline? And will Charles and Camilla making an appearance on EastEnders make them more popular? Tackling those stories and many more are radio and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry, model and commentator Leilani Dowding, and lawyer and broadcaster Rebecca Jane. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show. We've got so many things to get through. So mark@gbnews.uk is the email address to use. Now, this show has a golden rule. Do you know what this show's golden rule is? We don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. So there you are. That is my promise to you. We've got a cracking 2 hours of Sunday night entertainment and debate ahead for you. Big stories, big guests, and big opinions. Let's start with this one. Who runs Britain? Union bosses are threatening strike action in June as Britain faces a summer of discontent. Urgent plans to deal with potentially the biggest rail strike in modern history are being drawn up by the government in response to expected action by the RMT Rail Union. The RMT is balloting 40,000 members. If they strike, then industry experts say it will create serious challenges in keeping goods moving and supermarket shelves stocked up. Plus, it will hugely impact commuters and others getting around the country by rail. What's happening in the UK at the moment mirrors where we were in the late 70s, with rising inflation, households struggling to pay their bills, and the government up to its neck in national debt and running an eye-watering deficit in which we spend more than we bring in. Just as Britain now begins its tentative recovery from 2 years of economic Armageddon, the unions want to step in and completely finish this country off. Because where the rail unions lead, others will certainly follow. Summer strike action is a test case for the authority of this government. It's war. How deeply irresponsible that the unions should seek inflation-busting pay rises for their workers or resist reforms and cost savings for an industry now dependent on government handouts. How can they ask for that, given the country's finances are so wrecked? Financial hardship is now so bad across the country, people are switching off their fridges at night to save electricity. They're getting bloody food poisoning as a result. Highly respectable people, many in work, are going to food banks. People who never thought for one moment in their lives that they wouldn't be able to feed themselves and would need help from the state to do so are now going to food banks. So I've got no problem with the unions representing their workers, getting them the best possible pay and conditions. But read the room, folks. The country is on its knees, and the unions want to take it up the arse. Wage demands at a time like this in our history, when faced with inflation, energy insecurity, a war in the East, China with imperial ambitions, and an America that has lost the plot under Biden, is just not an option. Not only will sending the country further into the red fuel inflation and the cost of living crisis, it could ultimately become a national security issue for the country too. Selfish wage demands will further feed the monster of inflation coming our way, at a time when Britain must tighten its belt, not loosen it. Too many unions are running rings around this country, and they are running Britain. Margaret Thatcher, of course, would have given these characters short shrift and put them in their place. The campaign slogan for her election campaign in 1979 was, "Who runs Britain? Who runs Britain?" What a question. The government or the unions? Well, it seems her good work is being undone. It was the teaching unions, for example, who pushed so hard for school closures during the pandemic, which the data fails to show was necessary, and which anyone with half a brain and any honesty now admits was a mistake. I myself and many of you said this at the time, but we were the bad people then. Remember how things change. It was also the teaching unions that cruelly masked kids as young as 11 for up to 8 hours a day in a sweaty classroom without any compelling evidence that those filthy rags made a blind bit of difference. I have long considered school closures and mask mandates for kids to be state-sponsored child abuse. And with a generation of kids now clearly profoundly damaged by those measures, I stand by that claim. It was the BMA and the health unions who were part of the chorus of voices seeking to make the NHS COVID secure. You heard me right, COVID secure, backing crazy policies like doctors, nurses and surgeons sat at home, symptom-free for weeks on end, twiddling their thumbs because they'd been in contact with someone that tested positive for the virus. Go figure. You work in a hospital, for God's sakes. Zero COVID was a crazy idea at the best of times, but in a hospital setting in which we ignored other diseases for 2 years, it was indefensible. Unions across every industry you can think of pushed for work-from-home directives, which we now know has killed the high street, city centres, and has further smashed the economy. They were obsessed with enforcing the COVID theatre of perspex screens, masking, and those bloody arrows everywhere, and one-way systems. Some want these bonkers measures in place forever. And the DVLA's lack of productivity, the Passport Office's snail's pace performance, and civil servants' refusal across the board to get back to the office are all as a result of lax policies backed by their unions. These people wouldn't last 11 seconds in the private sector. Trade unions must exist, and workers must have rights, safety, great pay, and the opportunity to make something of their lives. I'm all about aspirational Britain. But the unions have to acknowledge our current catastrophic circumstances. Of course, they won't. It will be a race to the bottom, as it was in the late 70s. Things got so bad in the late 1970s. Workers went down to a 3-day week. There were power cuts. Rubbish was piling up in the streets. The dead were not being buried. And Britain had to go to the International Monetary Fund begging for a handout. All of this happened on the watch and at the behest of trade unions who had crazy policies in the late 70s like secondary picketing, in which people in a different industry could go on strike if a certain group of workers were themselves on strike. You couldn't make it up. And now again, the balance of power appears to have tipped in their favour, and they are running the country in the way they did in the 70s. Thatcher said no more, And Boris Johnson must now do the same. Boris Johnson has to stand up to the unions and ask a simple question asked by Thatcher in 1979. Who runs Britain? Because at the moment, the unions are running Britain into the ground. What's your view about union threats to strike this summer? Mark at gbnews.uk. Reacting to the big stories of the day is my truly all-star panel tonight. Radio and Fleet Street legend Mike "Porky" Parry, entrepreneur and lawyer and broadcaster Rebecca Jane, and writer, campaigner and model Leilani Dowding. Leilani, the unions have got to read the room. The country's broke and the cupboard's bare.
Absolutely. So I don't want to seem like a hypocrite because I did stand with the truckers in Canada when they took the time off work to go and protest what they felt was right. But we are in a massive crisis, cost of living, cost of lockdown crisis. And to stop people from being able to get to work when they also need to feed their families, you know, house themselves, stop the food chains and other supply chains, we can't, it just isn't the right time to do it. We can't have it now. And yes, the government needs to listen to the workers, but I just don't think striking is going to be the way to do it. It's not going to help our country in the position to get out of the position that we're in now.
Here's the issue, Rebecca Jane. If the government tolerates strikes from rail workers, there will be a domino effect across multiple industries.
Yeah, absolutely. And as per usual, the problem that I have with the striking procedures is that they penalise the people who shouldn't be penalised. You know, go on strike and all the rail stops. The only people that are going to actually be affected are the hardworking people who are in exactly the same position. I understand the point of how you need, you know, fair pay, and the whole point of this strike is that they are protesting about that there hasn't been the same increase in their wages as there has for living costs. However, we are all in exactly the same boat and exactly the same position. You going on strike is only going to upset the people who can't afford to do it as well.
Mike Parry, did you report on the winter of discontent in 1978?
In 78, 79, I was working in Birmingham on the Birmingham Evening Mail. And I used to go and report on these disputes. And the convener would always say, we're going to close down the Midlands car industry. And guess what? They didn't just close it down, they destroyed it. It disappeared forever. And that's why we don't have a car industry of our own in this country now. We have to rely on either overseas imports or set up factories here for foreign companies. Now, exactly the same thing's going to happen again. We can't do without rail services in this country. But if the people who are staffing them, led by this guy Mick Lynch, the RMT General Secretary, who is just a political bully boy, who wants to use his union to try and smash the Tory government because ideologically he's closer to Marxism than he is to democracy, OK? We can't put up with it. Now, it's not just the railway unions that are threatening. You said there could be a domino effect, Mark. You're absolutely right, because having looked at this today, knowing we're talking about it tonight, I can tell you there are plans for action in hospitals, in the education industry, in the collection of refuse and bins in this country. And it's all building up to a perfect storm at the moment for a confrontation which the trade unions in this country want with the government. It's a massively political battle, and as you've quite rightly said already, unless the government get tough, Grant Shapps and Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, we're going to be in a hell of a problem. I expect them to stand up against these horrendous bully boys who are simply trying to wreck the country for political reasons.
Mike Parry, we're just going to check your microphone because we want to hear every single golden pearl that comes from your
I should hope
lips.
so.
Leilani, it would be argued by the RMT that they're pushing back on, as has been mentioned, you know, years and years of insufficient pay rises, not keeping in pace with inflation. Also, they're concerned about involuntary redundancies, people quite literally being fired against their will. And they're talking about safety too. So don't they have a strong argument from that point of view?
Look, I understand that they have their reasons and they might feel backed into a corner. But we're in a horrific situation right now in this country. We've let it happen because of lockdowns. We've seen what happens when supply chains stop. So we can't afford to let it happen again because we're going to stop the rail services. And as you've both said, you've all said, it's going to have a knock-on effect if other people start joining in and then having, more education strikes. I mean, in schools. I mean, these poor kids have been out of school long enough. We've got waiting lists up to our eyeballs in the hospitals. We can't possibly have any strikes going on there. It's just going to turn this country into a complete disaster.
However, Rebecca Jane, are we at risk of demonising the unions, without whom we'd still be living in Dickensian times?
I don't quite agree with that. I think that we are at risk of demonising them in a certain way, but I think that they're doing it to themselves. I don't think that they're helping matters, and for me, as per usual, there's only one man actually that can probably have a serious effect on this, and that's Boris. But unfortunately, I am going to stick with my same opinion, that we have a country's leader who is weak and not capable for the job. So he's not going to be able to get the unions in check because he can't get his country in check.
Mike, final thoughts on this. How would Margaret Thatcher have handled this current situation?
Well, she'd have handled it the way she handled it then. First of all, you had to stand up and say, we're not having it. Then you have to introduce new legislation. The way they got rid of it last time was to impose very heavy fines on the unions. Unions have huge sums of money, in which they can look after their members. But if you put massive punitive fines on those unions, they soon back off. And the secondary picketing is absolutely essential, because the steel workers used to go and picket outside the coal mines in those days, and that was perfectly legal to close the country down. The problem is, Mark, in this country, we are too civilised and we are too understandable about people's needs. But I'd like some of these people who are going to try and close this country down to go to somewhere like Cuba and see whether their tactics in trying to close a country down would go down well there in the Marxist states from which they take their philosophy.
What is your view, Mark, at gbnews.uk? Have the unions bitten off more than they can chew? Would you like to see legislation tackling the power of the unions? Or do you back what they're doing this summer, simply working hard to protect workers' rights, pay and conditions? Mark at gbnews.uk. It's all about your opinions, and I especially like it when you don't agree. So do get those views coming in. In the news agenda later in the show, should employers snoop on their workers with secret cameras and microphones? That's something that Amazon are planning to do. Also, Charles and Camilla are going to be on EastEnders, actually in one of the episodes. Does this cheapen the monarchy, or will it make them more popular? And don't forget, before 10 o'clock, Harry Redknapp live on the show, reacting to a massive final day in the Premier League. Congratulations to Man City. We'll discuss everything with Harry, the King of the Jungle, at 9:45. But next up in The Big Question, are plus-size models attractive? See you shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Who runs Britain? Are the unions out of control by threatening a summer of discontent? The emails are coming in thick and fast. Sue's not pulling her punches. Stop the unions, she says. Also, how about this? Mark Green. The unions brought us the minimum wage, sick pay and maternity leave. Their influence mustn't be curtailed, Mark. Mark, thank you so much for that. As I've said, I love it when we disagree. How about this from Bruce? Dear Mark, Bojo, the Prime Minister, is responsible for the UK's dire economic situation, and Labour are his accomplices. The situation reflects that the incumbent political elite are not fit for purpose, so the sooner they are removed, the better. There you go, Bruce, more worried about the government and the opposition than the unions. How about this from Bert? Bert says, Dear Mark, much of what you say is likely to happen, but please never forget who caused these conditions to start with. Secondly, is it right to add insult to injury by making record profits among the upper crust, whilst, as always, the working class are compelled to pay for it all? And we're supposed to go along with this level of incompetence, are we? Soon we're likely to see cheap labour from the ranks of Ukraine and illegal immigrants. Same old, same old. Bert, thank you so much for sharing your views. And last but not least on this, Rod says, Dear Mark, I'm not a union man at all. However, conflating many unlinked consequences which make the media look like utter idiots is not the way to go. For example, no supermarket shelves will be any more empty than they evidently are now. I lived through the 70s manning a Green Goddess in Hull. There were more power cuts in the late 60s than the 70s. I am a Conservative. Rod, thank you so much for that. Look, I could read your emails forever. Keep those opinions coming. Mark at gbnews.uk. We're going to have a look at what was a massive final day in the Premier League. We'll speak to the king of the jungle, legendary manager Harry Redknapp. He's with us at 9:45. And also, we're very excited because at 10 o'clock, we'll talk to Calvin Robinson, GB News presenter, who has been cancelled by the Church of England. He wants to be a priest. They have said no because he has not followed the woke narrative. We'll get his story at 10 o'clock. You won't want to miss it. Plus, more from my panel, but it's time now for this. Yes, it's time for the big question in which we tackle a major news story of the day from multiple points of view. This week, best-selling Canadian author and clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson sent the following tweet in relation to a plus-size model on the front cover of Sports Illustrated magazine. Now, there's the tweet. He wrote, sorry, not beautiful. And no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. He was referring to the plus-size model. A plus-size model is a model that's has a higher body mass index than you'd usually expect. And this young woman's name is Yumi Nu. But not beautiful is what Peterson had to say about that. Now, is he guilty of fat shaming or even fat phobia and misogyny? Are plus-size models encouraging body positivity? Or are they flag bearers and apologists for obesity? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome weight loss motivation master Steve Miller, Love Island star Shauna Phillips, and plus-size model and body positivity advocate Vivian Ayo Ephraim. Vivian, let me start with you. First of all, you're beautiful.
Oh, thank you very much.
And I have, in the course of my job, purely for research, been looking at your CV and your back catalogue, and clearly you're a very successful model. What's your reaction to what this best-selling author had to say? Not beautiful was his comment.
I think it's a bit of a disappointing statement. just to say, clinically and morally, I think it's very wrong. As someone who has been a university lecturer and as someone who is in a profession of, psychology, you don't go on a big platform where you have thousands or millions of followers and say such. I personally think it's definitely body shaming and definitely has hints of fat phobia in there.
Is he, Vivian, drawing attention to the issue of health? Is the subtext of his remark that actually we need to make sure that everyone has, as slim a waistline as possible?
Definitely not. I think if you are to speak about health, there's ways to go around it. You don't quote tweet another person's picture or image and say that they're not beautiful. We're already in a society that beauty has been put into a box as to what it's supposed to be, when beauty is not defined. Beauty is big, small, large, whatever you want beauty to be, that's what beauty is. And I think that's where it's kind of wrong of him to say. It's just not right.
I guess if a doctor were to examine or have a consultation with this model, YouView, he might say to her, just as her physician, you might like to or consider losing weight because when you get older, you'll be susceptible to type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure and the rest of it. I mean, is that a conversation we should be having, that body positivity is one thing, but, glamorizing or glorifying ill health is another?
So I think it's always down to every individual to worry about their own body. You can't speak about someone else's body and say, oh, you look a certain way, so you're definitely unhealthy. I myself, as a plus size model, I work out, I have a routine. So many other people have routines and they might be of a bigger stature. You have models that, walk runways in Paris and France and all these places, and they're not as healthy as plus size models, but you can't put the term plus size and associate it with fat, associate it with obesity. There is a conversation to be had in terms of health, but there's ways to go around that conversation. You don't body shame. You don't say you're not attractive, you're not beautiful, you're this, you're that. Instead, you say, oh, what's going on? Why, what's making this crisis bigger? What can we do to assist people? Everyone keeps saying we've come out of a pandemic. Be kinder with your words, be nicer to people. And he just did not follow that rule, did he? And
Good luck with that. He did not get the memo, Vivian. Let's speak to Shauna Phillips. Shauna, welcome to the show. Love Island star. Looking forward to the new series. What do you think about the comments of this man? Is he guilty of cruelty and fat shaming, or does he have a point?
No, he's definitely just being a typical white-blooded male who thinks they are just entitled to have an opinion on a woman's body. I'm pretty sure if you ask that woman, would you like to sleep with this man? She would say, absolutely not. So why he thinks he's entitled to have an opinion about what she looks like, I don't know. And I think it's just kind of this woke culture. Now, don't get me wrong, I am definitely one to call out snowflakes here and there. But I think this is just him trying to be standing out from the crowd and just calling out whatever he thinks is now woke, but he's just gone so far the wrong way, it's embarrassing.
I mean, what is your view about women in magazines and their bodies generally, Shauna? Do you think that editors should encourage people with more normal bodies to actually be on the front of magazines and on billboards?
Of course, and not only that, but plus size is relative, because a plus size here would be completely different to a plus size in America. There's some websites where plus size is deemed size 14 and the average size of a woman in the UK is a size 16. That just doesn't make sense at all. And we've just been kind of conditioned to believe that what's beautiful is what we see in the magazines. And that's from a very, very young age. I remember buying magazines like Bliss that would teach you how to lose 14 pounds before going on holiday. And Bliss was for a teenage audience. So if that's what we've been brought up to reading, of course we're going to think that's what's beautiful. But, I mean, like Vivian said, I'm pretty sure you could have a plus-size model and a model that walked in Paris Fashion Week, and their health compared to both just would be completely different, because one model has starved themselves for weeks just to walk on this runway.
I don't appreciate, Steve Miller, the sentiment or indeed words used by Jordan Peterson But is it an example of calling a spade, a bit of tough love, that he doesn't want to normalise being overweight?
First of all, I think you're all beautiful,
Steve?
by the way. Yes, I think you're all beautiful on this panel.
Steve, you're absolutely smoking hot yourself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Keep shouting that.
You look a bit like me, but after I've had work done.
Listen, let me answer your question, right? Let me answer this question. What happened with this guy is that he constructed his tweet in completely the wrong way, I believe. I think what he's actually saying is that actually to normalize obesity is not beautiful. And I think that's what he was saying, looking at the tweet. Because if you look at it, sorry, he's put, sorry, not beautiful. And no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. And I think what he's saying is to accept and to normalize the nations becoming fatter and to glorify it and to celebrate it is not something that should be done. And that is not a beautiful way to go. So I think we have to give him a little bit of, we have to kind of have some understanding for that, because we do know that, and all of the research is clear on this, if you are obese, you are more likely to suffer with type 2 diabetes, heart disease, strokes. Now there's research suggesting that obesity can trigger early onset dementia as well. So I think we've got to keep it a bit real. He could have chosen his words a little bit better. But does he have a point that we're going from the catwalk to the fat walk? Maybe he does.
Steve Miller, what rules would you put in place in terms of magazines, billboard adverts to not glorify being overweight?
I can answer that direct. I would ban plus-size models on fronts of magazines, but I would also ban size 0 models on the front of magazines for one reason. Obesity puts you on death row. And anyone that's denying that are completely mistaken and not reading the health research. It is clear. If you are too fat, you are much more likely to have an early grave.
Blimey, gosh. Well, it's tough love coming from Steve Miller. Vivian, would you like to respond to what Steve has had to say?
First, I'd like to say that, everyone's entitled to their own opinion and you always have to respect other people's opinion. I quite frankly disagree with what he said, only because I'm having a really big moment of a brain freeze at the moment, because it's just it's very confusing for you to say, don't promote obesity, don't do this, don't do that. But there's so many things in life that shouldn't be promoted, but nobody's saying, oh, don't smoke, don't drink alcohol, don't do this, don't do that. For so long, we had size 0 models, all over our faces in magazines, print, runway, TV commercials, and it was never a problem. No one was ever saying you're pushing the narrative of, anorexia, or you're pushing the narrative of, unhealthy eating disorders and things like that. But, God forbid someone that's got a little bit of weight on them graces a magazine cover.
Let me tell you, Vivian, there's no brain freeze from your point of view. You've spoken very succinctly, and I couldn't agree with you more. If we're going to start banning things from billboards, let's ban fast food adverts, and
ban Coke, ban McDonald's, ban everything.
Yeah. Let's not cancel models from the billboards.
I'm surprised at you saying that.
Steve,
I'm surprised at you saying that, because I think when you talk about advertising, you're talking about hypnosis, really, the power of suggestion, and to suggest to the nation that being overweight, dangerously overweight, is great, and if you're happy and you're fat, clap your hands, is a good way to go, I think actually is pretty negligent, I have to say. Because what we do know, and I will repeat it, is that this country is actually forecast to be the fattest nation in Europe in 10 years' time. And it is much more likely that the strain on the NHS because of that is going to grow, and people will be suffering badly. May I add, from 13 or 14 cancers directly related to obesity. So anybody suggesting that celebrating obesity by great big promotions of plus size, sorry, no, absolutely not.
Viewers, details of your very successful...
Have you seen
Vivian?
Promotion of obesity? It was not on the front cover. You know, she was just in a swimsuit in her natural state. She can't help how she looks. And at the end of the day, no one can. So if that's her natural state, they haven't put on there, oh yeah, be obese everyone, or make sure you know, go in this lane to look like her. They haven't said that. She's standing there as a beautiful woman, you know, very confident in her own skin.
Listen, she is, you're right. You're right. She
For
is
so long,
beautiful.
size zero,
She is a
you know, models
woman.
were sexy.
But
we're changing the narrative now. It's 2022, so I think it's a bit old to just rely on that.
I'm going to bring I'll bring my panel in, Steve, and I'll give details to our viewers of your weight loss programme at the end of the item. A quick word with you on this, Shauna, before I go to the rest of my panel. What's your reaction there to sort of the health argument that Steve's making, Shauna?
So firstly, that woman is absolutely not dangerously obese. And also, if it was a size zero woman having a cigarette on the cover of Sports Illustrated, would we be having a conversation about health? I absolutely don't think so.
OK, well, let's now bring in another model. In fact, frankly, you should all be models, because we've got Rebecca Jane, who is a very, very beautiful lawyer and commentator, and Leilani, who is a model and also a broadcaster and writer as well. Leilani, you have posed for many a professional photo shoot. Do you think that plus-size models are beautiful?
Well, let's just look at the Sports Illustrated situation. Jordan Peterson is far from woke. He's the absolute opposite of woke. He's completely not PC, and he'll speak it as he feels. And I think at 23, I think she's early 20s, that girl. She probably hasn't had children. It's not a great body image for a girl. And I agree, anorexically, painfully skinny models of the 90s also aren't. And I would have always said that. Absolutely, they aren't as well. But she's not as obese as some of the plus-size models that we are seeing. I mean, we've seen some morbidly obese plus-size models, even trying to promote in like Nikes or Calvin Klein's or whatever, and they are morbidly obese. It's so unhealthy. It's like a walking heart attack you're looking at, and they just shouldn't be there as a role model for anybody.
Yeah, and Rebecca Jane, what's your view on this? Whose side do you take? Everything's tribal now, so you're either with Jordan Peterson or you're not.
Well, I think this might be the first time in a long time I'm a little bit on the fence. But what I am absolutely deadly against, which is the one thing I've heard on all aspects of this whole conversation, is judgment. And all I hear is one side's bashing another side and the other side's bashing another side. For me, this picture of this lady, I absolutely respect Jordan Peterson's view that he does not find that beautiful. That's fine. He can think that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which is what everybody seems to be forgetting here. Personally, I think she's got an absolutely beautiful face. I don't think it's something that we should be looking up to as to a society of this is what we now all need to be. But on the other point of that as well, I also don't think that we need to be... there's a whole lot of skinny, for want of a better phrase, models that I don't think are beautiful either. The problem here is judgment, and everybody's got one. Just accept people have got opinions, and it's fine.
Leilani?
But can I say, also, when you go on the cover of Sports Illustrated, it is a male-orientated magazine. It's not really there for women. So, of course, men are going to pick it up and have an opinion. And if you're going to go on the cover of any magazine, maybe not necessarily adverts, but if you're going to be on a magazine or in the newspapers modelling as yourself, I think you're putting yourself out there for people to have an opinion on you. And they should be able to have an opinion. And if that's how Jordan Peterson feels, then he should be able to say it. And
we can't get offended by everything.
Yeah.
And we are all offended by everything.
Rebecca Jane, don't you think there's something quite sexist about a middle-aged man like Jordan Peterson, as mentioned there by Shauna, commenting on a young woman's body? How dare he? I mean, it's extremely ungentlemanly language, isn't it?
I don't think the language used is appropriate. I do think that the language he is used is inappropriate. However, I'm not going down this whole white men can't comment business. I'm sorry, but absolutely not. If you put yourself on the cover of Sports Illustrated, anybody's going to have an opinion. We sit ourselves on this programme and every man and his dog's got an opinion. We have to accept that. And tell you what, we get trolled to high heaven for it. That's part of the job, and that's part of the job that she signed up for. White men? No, absolutely not. Yet again, just another woke statement. No.
And also, I think a lot of women would comment if some guy came on...
Women are worse than men.
Imagine if they were on Men's Health with a beer belly. I think a few women would comment.
Yes, it would, yeah. Yeah, and you know what, as well? Like, I went to a life drawing class last week on a hen party, and obviously it was a man who was the person that we were life drawing. It's like, again, we're objectifying men, and we don't say anything about that.
No, well, that's a fair point. Vivian, there are quite a few high-profile women in the music industry who are curvaceous. Is there a point at which we decide as a society that someone is unhealthily big? For example, Adele before her weight loss, or Lizzo?
I mean, thank you for that question, because it's been mentioned just now that so much judgment is being passed onto people. I think it's down to nobody to pass any form of judgment onto anyone, regardless of their size, whether they're a size 0 or a size 50, and whether they're into music, arts, entertainment, pottery, nursing, whatever it is. I think nobody should be judged for the way they look. Nobody should be judged for the way they are as a person. I just think it's just unnecessary. Life would be so much easier if everybody, kept their unwanted opinions to themselves.
Shauna, one final thought. I think that there's agreement across the board that there shouldn't be judgment towards women in relation to how they look, and we're all agreed that everyone we've talked about is just gorgeous. But just in relation to that health issue, at some point as a society, do we have to send a message that being overweight is suboptimal, that it isn't a good idea, that you can be gorgeous, but that being a healthy weight needs to be an aspiration rather than just saying, I'm really big and that's great?
Yeah, of course. And I think also every height holds weight different. We already know that the BMI index is outdated and just doesn't work. But I mean, I'm sure if you ask this lady, what size would you like to be? It's not about what size you want to be. It's about just being okay with how you are now, regardless whether you want to change things in the future, whether you want to get a little healthier. It's just about being okay in the moment. And I think that's the kind of message that I want to put across.
My profound thanks to all of you. It's been the most fascinating conversation. Do join us on the programme again soon. I did say I'd give details of Steve Miller's programme. It's called yourweightlossmaster.co.uk, or just Google Fatnosis. Also, thanks to Vivian Ayo Ephraim, who is a plus-size model and a body positivity advocate. And Shauna Phillips, star of Love Island. Brilliant to have that conversation, and my panel will return shortly with lots more burning issues of the day, including in the next hour, should employers snoop on their staff with secret cameras and microphones? That's something that Amazon are considering doing. But after this, we'll get reaction to the football, the last day of the Premier League. Man City are the champions. We'll speak to football legend Harry Redknapp after this.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
In relation to whether plus-size models are a bad role model, this from Mary. Dear Mark, I am morbidly obese and hate it when you do debates on obesity as it makes me hungry. You only have one life. Do what you like. You know the risks and benefits. It is your choice, but don't get upset if others have something to say about it. Ron says, hi, Mark and all. Obesity is a problem that can cause bad health and problems with mobility, but generally, there is a reason for the condition, but a person who is obese needs help, not abuse. I love getting your emails. As you know, it's the best part of my show. I'll get to more of them very shortly, mark at gbnews.uk. Well, let's talk about the Premier League. Manchester City came from 2 goals down on an incredible final day to beat Liverpool to the Premier League title. They scored 3 goals in 5 minutes to beat Aston Villa 3-2 to win it for the 4th time in 5 years. They finished 1 point ahead of Liverpool, who also came from behind, beating Wolves 3-1 at Anfield. Tottenham finished in the last Champions League place, just behind Chelsea. Drama too at the bottom as Leeds beat Brentford, meaning Burnley drop into the second tier of English football for the first time since 2017. One man who's used to late drama is former professional player and legendary manager Harry Redknapp, who joins us now to reflect on a massive day in the Premier League. Hi, Harry.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm so well. Have you got your breath back?
It was amazing day. I mean, it suddenly looked like Man City had blown it, 2-0 down. And in all honesty, they could have been even worse. They had a couple of great opportunities, Aston Villa, to go, could have scored a couple more. And you really couldn't see Man City coming back. They weren't playing well. They weren't creating a lot, especially in that first half. They got better second half. But no, they looked like it was going to all fade away. And but Liverpool was still drawing at that time, so you weren't sure which way it was going to end up.
Yeah, too right. Harry, just how good are Liverpool and Man City at the moment in historic terms?
They're fantastic, Mark. They're the 2 best teams in the world in world football. Just amazing football teams. There's nothing between them. They're so on par. It's Liverpool have now got Champions League final, which I think they'll win against Real Madrid. They've won the cups. Man City win the league. They're just amazing, and the football they play is absolutely top class. They've got great squads. They've got great strength in depth. They're 2 special teams. They're way ahead of anybody else in the Premier League and anywhere else in my opinion, in Europe.
Harry, Liverpool came that close to winning another league title. Will their heads drop? I mean, what would you be saying to them if you were in the dressing room this afternoon? Because obviously they've got to go and beat Real Madrid now.
Well, there's so much to play for. They've got to be proud of what they've achieved. They've been amazing this year. To win cups and then to take it to the last game of the season like they have today. 1 point in it, nothing between the 2 teams, really. And now they've got a Champions League final, which, as I say, I'm very confident they'll win. They're just an amazing football club, amazing team. We've got 2 great teams. Man City have been fantastic. They're both top class.
Harry, does the league never lie, that table? Do you think that City were fractionally better than Liverpool at the end of the day?
I don't know, Mark. It was one of those. It was where the wheel stopped. City were 2 down last week at West Ham. Looked like they were going to maybe get beat there and came back and got a draw. But today, as I say, it could have been all over for them, really. But they're on par. I think if they played each other 10 times, you'd probably, every week could be different. Either one is capable of beating the other. But I think the league is what it is. They're the top 2 teams. Chelsea, for me, were the 3rd best team. Tottenham were the 4th best team. And then I think West Ham were a little bit unlucky. They could have easily finished 5th if they hadn't got involved, perhaps in that great European run they had. But then there was Arsenal, West Ham, Man United, who need to regroup for next season. But the league, pretty much it's a fair reflection of the play.
I'm delighted to say, Harry, that we also have the co-founder of TalkSport Radio, of course, a legendary Fleet Street journalist who covered the back pages for many years at The Sun and The Express. Mike "Porky" Parry is with us. Mike, what an afternoon of football.
Indeed, Harry, great to share a show with you on this historic day. Historic day being the last day of another sparkling, fantastic Premiership season. I want to talk to you about Sean Dyche and Burnley in a minute, Harry, but can I put this question to you first, please? Pep Guardiola said 48 hours before today's game, it's the Premier League that matters most. It's the Premier League that I'm most concerned about. Is he covering his own back here, Harry? Because apart from inheriting the world's greatest team at Barcelona, he was a member of that team before he took it over as a manager. He hasn't been able to crack the world's top tournament, the Champions League, since he left there. I mean, doesn't he need to do that to prove that he is, the Svengali coach that we all believe him to be?
Well, obviously that's got to be top of his agenda now, Mike, to win that Champions League. There's no doubt he's desperate to win that with Man City. But he is a great coach. Obviously, he's got a great group of players, and they're 2 fantastic teams. But I think until he wins the Champions League with Man City, he'll never be happy. Really, winning the title again, they've done it just almost blasé now. What's that, 4 times? But the Champions League is still the one that's eluding him. They've brought Haaland in now to hopefully strengthen them yet further next year, and they'll be looking to win Champions League for sure.
Well, absolutely. What is it about Liverpool, Harry, that makes them just keep winning Champions Leagues? Even if they don't win them, they get to the final on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And remember, I'm an Evertonian, and
absolutely.
Everton and Liverpool
I don't know,
the
Mike,
same size sort of clubs.
When you look at the league, when you look at Champions League, we've got the strongest teams here now, I think,
Yeah.
Even Chelsea was strong this year and were unlucky to go out of the competition. But I do think that, the Premier League is where the best teams are at the moment. A few years ago, Barcelona were reigning, then Bayern Munich. We've had the Italian teams that are not as strong anymore, Juventus and that. They're not competing when it comes to the final stages. It's definitely now, it's like last year, British teams, English teams. The English teams are we're the strongest. So It's been fantastic. We've got some great teams and great players in this country.
Absolutely. Harry, getting to Burnley, when you heard Sean Dyche had been fired by Burnley some 10 games ago, 10, 12 games ago, what was your reaction? My reaction was, as an Evertonian, I'm rather glad because I think Sean Dyche is a brilliant manager who's done a brilliant job at Burnley over a decade, and that gives Everton an opportunity to get one over Burnley because they've got rid of a great man.
I couldn't agree with you more. He's done an amazing job. I mean, what a time to sack him. And I listened the other day, Mike, I see people on TV putting these stats together. Since he's gone, they've had more possession. They've had more corners. They've had more shots or whatever. The percentage. Who have they played? They haven't played Man City in that period, or they haven't played. Stats you can make anything out of stats. Of course they've had more possession. They're playing teams in and around them at the lower ends of the table where they're going to get more possession, more shots. So there's no way Sean Dyche should have gone. He was amazing. Absolutely great job there, keeping them in the league. And I do fear for Burnley now. I think next year they're not a team I look at and think, well, they'll come straight back up next year. I really do fear for Burnley.
Harry, very briefly, first of all, let me say you look fantastically well, and it's great to have you on the show. Briefly, great news for Frank Lampard, and of course, great news for Mike "Porky" Parry and Everton. What a brilliant way to keep yourself safe. And Frank can really kick on now, can't he, next season?
Hopefully. I mean, listen, I've become a massive Everton supporter as well, believe you me. I've been kicking every ball, in this last few weeks. And I thought they were gone. I must be truthful. I really thought it looks like they're going to go. Then a couple of amazing results, the Chelsea result, going to Leicester and winning. Just pulled off a couple of great wins when they needed them. The win the other night against Palace, 2-0 down at half-time, looking like really there's no way back and then turning it around. But
Harry, absolutely.
He needs some support.
Absolutely brilliant, Harry. Listen, lots of love to you and Sandra and the family. Brilliant to have you on the show, and congratulations to Man City on their victory. Lots more to come with Mark Dolan tonight. See you shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan tonight, is the Church of England in terminal decline? We'll speak to the mixed-race broadcaster cancelled by the church for his conservative views. Plus, will going on EastEnders make Prince Charles and Camilla more popular? And should employers be snooping on their staff with secret cameras and microphones, a project that Amazon are going to be trying shortly? Reacting to those stories and many more are my all-star panel of Mike Porky Parry, Rebecca Jane and Leilani Dowding. Plus tomorrow's papers and panel reaction at exactly 10:30. That's right, the papers live on this show at 10:30. Plus another great British game show before the end of the programme tonight. Dodgy celebrity tattoos. Will play a game of Tat Who. You're right, this show is not just thrown together. Plus my Mark Meets guest is 90s music legend Pearl Lowe. And a short Big Opinion monologue is coming too. You won't want to miss it in just 2 minutes' time. But first, here's Ray Addison with the headlines.
Thanks, Mark. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The Rail, Maritime and Transport Union calls government plans for a minimum staffing requirement during strikes desperate nonsense. The comment comes as Transport Secretary Grant Shapps told the Sunday Telegraph ministers are considering making industrial action illegal unless an adequate number of staff are still working. The RMT warns that any attempt to do so will be met with the fiercest resistance. Former political strategist to Tony Blair, John McTernan, told GB News the Transport Secretary faces an uphill battle.
The rail unions are turning on Grant Shapps. He wants to nationalise the unions. He gets the responsibility of dealing with the pay. You can't have it both ways. He wants Great British Railways. He wants to say he's in charge of the railways. Well, he is in charge. So therefore, he's taken workers in the private sector where they were perfectly capable of bargaining with employers. And now he wants to bargain with them. He wants to give the railway workers the same 1.5% pay deal he's offering to teachers and to nurses and civil servants.
The leader of the DUP says implementing the Northern Ireland Protocol in full would result in an economic tsunami. Sir Geoffrey Donaldson was responding to a tweet from US Democrat Brendan Boyle. Meanwhile, UUP leader Doug Beattie also questioned Mr Boyle's understanding of the Belfast Agreement. Discussions have been ongoing since it emerged that the government intends to introduce new legislation to remove or change the protocol. Labour's calls for a windfall tax on oil and gas firms have been rejected by 2 cabinet ministers. The Health and Northern Ireland secretaries say the move wouldn't work, but would have a long-term impact on businesses. The Prime Minister has not ruled it out, but says he can't magic away the cost of living crisis. Greg Marsh, CEO of Nous, which helps families with their finances, told GB News regulators could do more to stop rising energy prices.
We believe that the government will have to do more. We think that there will need to be intercession. One of the things they could do, for instance, is use the existing regulators, Ofcom and Ofgem, who regulates the communications industry and the energy industry, to put more pressure on the regulated providers of energy, the regulated providers of mobile phone services and broadband services, to ensure that those companies aren't increasing their prices above the rate of inflation, which is something many of them are doing.
And Ukrainian soldiers in the Donbass region say they're ready for anything as Russian forces intensify their offensive on the eastern border. It comes as Kyiv ruled out a ceasefire or territorial concessions to Moscow. Russia's defense ministry claims its forces have successfully struck Ukrainian command centers, troops and ammunition depots in Donbass. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now let's get back to Mark Dolan tonight.
Welcome to Mark Dolan tonight and a cracking hour of TV, entertainment and debate we have lined up for you. Big opinions, big guests and big stories, including is the Church of England in terminal decline? We'll speak to the GB News broadcaster at the centre of a race row. Plus, will going on EastEnders make Prince Charles and Camilla more popular? And should employers be snooping on their staff with secret cameras and microphones? Reacting to those stories and many more are my dream team panel of broadcaster, radio legend and Fleet Street legend Mike Porky Parry, journalist and broadcaster Leilani Dowding, and we have top lawyer and political commentator Rebecca Jane. Plus, tomorrow's Papers and full panel reaction at exactly 10:30. That's right, the Papers live at 10:30 on this programme. And another great British game show before the end of the programme. Tonight, dodgy celebrity tattoos. We'll be playing a game of Tat Who. Well done, Rachel. Nice work. And in fact, I'll be revealing my secret celebrity tattoo, right? You won't want to miss that. That's at 10 to 11. And my Mark Meets guest is 90s pop sensation Pearl Lowe. You want to hear her incredible story. She'll be here shortly. But let's start with this. A good friend of mine, the GB News presenter, writer and political commentator Calvin Robinson, a man of deep religious faith, intellect and integrity, has had his proposed ordination to become a priest cancelled by the Church of England. Doesn't sound very Christian to me. Calvin's cancellation is not because he's broken any of the 10 commandments. He's not murdered, stolen or coveted his neighbour's ass. Not to the best of my knowledge, anyway. His great crime is that he has traditional conservative views. He also spoke out against COVID restrictions, including churches closing their doors to parishioners during the pandemic. He has called out gender ideology, which questions the idea of biological sex, and he's rigorously pro-traditional family values. In other words, he's been cancelled by the Church of England for having the wrong opinions. He has even, unfashionably, cautiously supported the government's Rwanda plan to process asylum applications abroad, described as ungodly by the Archbishop of Canterbury, but which Robinson argues may help to smash the cruel business model of international gangsters profiting from human trafficking. Calvin is of mixed race heritage, and yet, quite astonishingly, was told by a white female priest, the Bishop of London, the Right Reverend Sarah Mullally, with no hint of irony at all, she said that his views on racism were wrong. Now, Robinson's view is that the evil scourge of racism exists in our society, a view that I absolutely share. But he takes the view that it does not inhabit every nook and cranny, and that our societal problems, for those at the wrong end of the economic ladder, go beyond skin colour. It's peak 2022 for a virtue-signalling woke Caucasian cleric to effectively white-splain, that's right, white-splain, to a black man about racism. The Church of England turned its back on parishioners in the course of this pandemic. God should have been around at this time of national crisis. And by turning its back on the likes of Calvin Robinson, it perpetuates the leftist groupthink that now dominates the Church of England and so many other public institutions. By rejecting a plurality of voices and by rejecting Robinson's application to be a priest, which is arguably racist in itself, all the Church of England is doing is accelerating its own downfall. Clearly, Calvin didn't get the memo that people of colour have to be lefties. Jesus wept. Well, that's my view. What's yours? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'm delighted to say that Calvin Robinson joins us now. Hi, Calvin.
Hello, good evening, Mark. That was a really good introduction, by the way. White-splaining, I like it.
That's what it is. It is peak 2022, isn't it? Did that encounter really happen with the Bishop of London?
Oh, I wish it didn't. When she said to me, look, as a white woman, I can tell you that the church is institutionally racist. And I'm like, look, you're missing the picture here. Racism is an evil that individuals take on board. It's something we need to stamp out, but it's if we take it away from the individual level, we remove their responsibility. And when we say it's institutional, we cannot paint an entire institution as racist without any evidence, without any kind of data to back it up. You can't just say that institution is racist. And if the church is saying that the church is institutionally racist, and the people at the top are the ones saying it, should they not be stepping down? Are they not either responsible for the problem, having not fixed it, or are they not causing the problem, having been in positions of power for 11 to 18 years between them?
Why this attachment by institutions like the Church of England to the idea that the organisation is institutionally racist? They seem married to this idea, almost willing it to be the case, in the same way that a lot of liberal lefty voices were up in arms when the Sewell report came out, suggesting that the data did not back up the idea that Britain is institutionally racist. And I'd hasten to add that Lord Sewell himself is a black man.
Lord Sewell's fantastic. His report was amazing. It was evidence-informed, data-driven. He looked into many, many racial disparities and found evidence of them in the UK and put forward suggestions on how to solve them. When that report came out, the Church of England said they found it very frustrating and harmful, and it made the church very angry. Now, why would that be? Because it didn't find evidence to suggest what the church thinks is the case, that this country is institutionally racist. But surely it should be a good thing if we don't find evidence of that. Surely if we see evidence of racism at an individual level that we can work on with ideas of actions to solve the problem, that's a good thing, rather than saying, well, they didn't agree with us, therefore it's bad, it's harmful, it makes us angry. It's wanting to be proven right or proved right, and which could be the argument put forward in my situation when I say, actually, I don't think that racism is institutional in the church. I've seen racism on an individual level. That is a problem. Let's work on it. And they say, no, racism is institutional. And then they sack me. Are they trying to prove their point?
And Calvin, I'm devastated for you on a personal level. We are colleagues and friends. And what you've been through is I think, quite traumatic. How are you doing emotionally and spiritually?
It's been a whirlwind, let's just say that. On the one hand, it's been heartbreaking and soul destroying because I haven't applied for a job. I haven't gone for a position. I've been discerning and praying through a long process of months and years to a calling, something that I feel called to by God, and so that the church acknowledged that calling. So to be denied it at the last minute after I've just finished my training is hard. But at the same time, it's like a weight off my shoulders. I feel liberated from the stifling establishment, and I can now get on with my ministry without having to battle the wokeness within the church every day on issues of gender, race, sexuality, and get back to scripture, get back to the Bible, and get back to teaching what we're supposed to be teaching rather than climate change or Brexit.
Well, I look forward to attending one of your services the moment that you are ordained in an alternative church, and we'll have a look at that in just a moment in terms of where you're going to be going. And I know that you've been welcomed by another ministry. But let's bring, if we can, Calvin, my wonderful panel into this as well. A very spiritual man, Mike Porky Parry. Well, he likes spirits anyway. We also have lawyer and broadcaster Rebecca Jane and model and campaigner and presenter Leilani Dowding. Rebecca Jane, this is no way to treat somebody that just wants to contribute to the spiritual life of this country.
Yeah, and obviously, like Kelvin says, this is a calling, and to then be denied it by somebody is just not appropriate. Who are they to decide? As somebody that was raised going to Sunday school, and it was absolutely lost on me, sorry, Mum and Dad, until the age of 13, I can tell you that actually what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve appeals to me far more than the Christian faith. And I think that, personally, I think you've got a far better and higher calling to be delivering than to deal with this nonsense.
I completely agree. Leilani, it's just, obviously it's a big media story. Calvin has written a fantastic piece in today's Mail on Sunday. So it's great sort of media fodder, but this is a human being we're talking about.
Well, that's it. And I have a lot of respect for Calvin. I've been following him for a very long time, actually, and I'm sorry for what you've gone through. And what you were saying about white-splaining, it really is a thing. I just got into a huge spat with somebody on Twitter because they told me that I should be offended. A white liberal, obviously, wokey, lefty, told me I should be offended when somebody asks where I'm from or where my parents are from, because my mum's from the Philippines, and obviously I don't look like your typical English girl, so I should be offended by it. And so it's definitely a thing, and it's definitely the wokey left, and I'm glad that Calvin feels that he doesn't have to be part of that anymore or go along and feels a sense of relief from it. So, yeah.
I find that fascinating, Leilani. The idea that someone is taking an interest in you and in your life and your background, and you should be offended by that. We've come so far backwards in that we're not even allowed to discuss race or heritage or ethnicity anymore, are we? Without being accused of being racist.
And it's something I'm really proud of. It's something I've always loved to talk about, and where I'm proud of my mum. She moved to this country when she was 23 to become a nurse. I'm proud of her, and I should be offended because somebody asks and takes interest. It's madness. This whole wokeism is madness.
Yeah, Mike.
It always comes down to other people taking offence on other people's behalves, doesn't it? I'm not offended, but someone thinks that I should be, and that's the situation you seem to be in. It's upside down.
It is upside down. Mike Porky Parry, I think this is a race to the bottom for the Church of England.
Well, Calvin, I admire enormously what you're doing. You're trying to do. I read that piece in the Mail on Sunday to get today. I think if you do get through this, over this first massive hurdle, if you do manage to become ordained, that might be when your problems really start, because you're going to be a lone voice inside the Church of England. The Church of England is now a political lobby, and the politics that they expound are all left-wing political ideas. They seem to think that kindness can be confused with consideration for the reality of life. So, for instance, the Rwanda policy, which you've already mentioned, no, it's terrible, it's inhumane, it's shocking, without considering the benefits which many, many people recognise. Every time there's an examination of the welfare state, and should we pare it back because it's now become so huge? No, that's inhumane. Don't they realise that one of the Christian callings is the dignity of the individual, not somebody having to live off the welfare state, but wanting to stand on their own 2 feet, make their own way in life, and become a good person who has the right to support their own family and those around them who they love. They mix up goodness, look, I'm really good because I'm sympathetic and kind. I want to help people, and the government can spend an awful lot more money doing that on my behalf. They confuse that with the reality of life, where most people, and take the Red Wall in the north of England, do actually want to become more independent and live their own lives, and that's according to Christian beliefs.
Absolutely. I think you're on the money there. It's people want to hand up, not to hand out. And if people are used to being on a welfare system, they get stuck on that dependency and they can't improve their lives. Absolutely. I think conservative values are in line with Christian values. But at the moment, we're far more likely to hear a bishop preaching on climate change or preaching about how bad Brexit is or the latest conservative government policy and how horrible and ungodly that is, than we are to hear the bishops preaching about the faith, about scripture. You know, the Easter message from the Archbishop of Canterbury, arguably the most important message of the year, was spent criticising a conservative government rather than proclaiming the gospel and talking about our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ dying on the cross for our salvation. Something has gone amiss. It has become politics instead of faith.
Well, Calvin, we wish you well. We send our love to you and our support because it's a challenging time. It's become a media story, but as I said, it's your life, it's your spiritual life. You've got a huge contribution to make. You left the Church of England and are joining the breakaway Conservative Global Anglican Future Conference, and they're bloody lucky to have you. Can't wait to see you on the channel soon.
Thank you. God bless.
Brilliant stuff, the remarkable Calvin Robinson. Your reaction to that, Mark at gbnews.uk. Later this hour, with my amazing panel in the news agenda. Should employers snoop on their workers with cameras and microphones? Amazon are going to try it out, but does it go against human rights, do you think? How do you feel about being in the office or in your van delivering stuff and having a camera on you? Sounds a bit troubling to me. Also, Charles and Camilla are going to they're going to appear in an episode of EastEnders. Will it make them more popular? And will they be a great king and queen? We'll discuss that. Plus, looking forward to our Great British Game Show tonight, celebrity tattoos, and I'm going to reveal mine. I'll see you shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, sport, showbiz and beyond. And it doesn't get more legendary than tonight's guest, 90s music legend Pearl Lowe, who was the vocalist of mid-90s indie bands Powder and Lodger. Those were the days. In 2001, she launched Pearl Lowe, her signature range of lace curtains and cushions. She's also launched a bespoke women's wear collection and was the face of Agent Provocateur. Lo published her memoir, All That Glitters, in 2007, a sombre and moving insight into overcoming addiction. Lo was an ambassador for the homeless charity Crisis, but is now an ambassador for Action on Addiction. Both brilliant, brilliant charities. She's got 4 gorgeous children, including the supermodel Daisy Lo, who she had with singer Gavin Rossdale. Her latest project has been the loving restoration of a house in Winchelsea in East Sussex, reflecting her passion for great textiles and vintage furnishings. A book about her latest project is called Faded Glamour by the Sea. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous book, and it's out now, and I'm delighted to say that Pearl Lowe joins us on GB News. Hi, Pearl.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so well. Great to have you on the programme. Listen, you are the queen of reinvention, aren't you?
Oh, I guess so. I don't know. I've kind of always been into antiques and vintage ever since I was really young, but I think it's kind of become quite fashionable recently. So it seems like a reinvention, but it isn't.
Well, look, you've got incredible taste, just the most amazing eye for these interior furnishings and, of course, fashion as well, textiles. This is your area of expertise alongside music. Tell us about this rather dilapidated house that you bought a few years ago in East Sussex.
Oh, yeah. Actually, it was only a year ago.
Really?
So we bought. Yeah, it was only a year ago, actually. And it took a long time to kind of renovate because it was lovely. It wasn't actually, it looked great when we bought it, but it was kind of needed a lot of updating. All the electrics, all the plumbing, the kind of thing you have to do when you buy a house. And and it's kind of now very plain and all white, and it's lovely. And we've been there ever since February. So it's nearly, just over a year.
Well, Pearl, I honestly can't believe it's been a year because I've been looking through the book. I love the photographs. I think we're going to show you a couple shortly of this amazing job that you did. But I think your husband said that buying this house, it nearly killed him because you bought it without a survey because you loved it so much. But on day one, you thought you'd made a massive mistake.
Yeah, because when we got there, it was off-grid and it was freezing, it was snowing, and our mattress hadn't arrived. And he basically said to me, "We've basically bought a glorified shed." I was like, oh no. And then it just kind of, everything went from bad to worse, and it just became this massive money pit, and everything went wrong. And I don't know, he said it nearly killed him, but he's fine now. He's kind of enjoying it now, so it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, where does your interest in textiles and furnishings come from?
I don't know. My mum is an interior designer, and from a very early age, she used to take me shopping, and, we'd go to all the kind of fabric shops and the tile shops and the paint shops. So I think it was kind of rammed down my throat quite a lot, but it was in a good way, not in a bad way. I just think when my husband and I bought our first house in Camden all those years ago, I just got really into creating lovely colours and, wallpapers and things. And I just got a real flair for it, really. And we then we started like kind of buying houses and flipping them. And that's how we kind of made our money then. And it's just become a business since then. So I don't know. It's just been a real, I'm just really passionate about interiors. I just love them so much. And I know it's not everyone's thing, but it is mine. So.
Well, I think it's incredible. If you look at it's a nice mix, of rather traditional fabrics. You've got lace and cotton, posh paint as well. I believe this house is rented out now to lucky holiday makers.
Yeah, so it was always going to be a business that we, sometimes we could enjoy, but obviously, other people can enjoy. And actually we can't even get down there. We're trying to get down there, but it's like, oh my God, it's rented out. But it is a lovely place. And we're just really pleased with it. So, but we love Somerset. I mean, that's where we live, and we've been here for 15 years now. So
Well, speaking of which, that's another big change in your life and your lifestyle. You were a massive indie star in the 90s, part of the glamorous Primrose Hill set alongside Kate Moss and Sadie Frost. Do you miss those days?
No, I mean, actually, funny enough, I was talking about this the other day. I think I wouldn't have been able to live in the country if I hadn't have had that kind of wild time in London. I mean, obviously, I go back to London and I think, God, it would be so fun to be here again and go out and things. But, it was such a fun time. But also the Britpop days were really fun. I mean, that was when we were in bands and kind of traveling around. And it was just, we were young and we didn't have phones and we didn't have the internet and everything was just so much simpler then. So it was a great time. And I don't think I could live this peaceful life in the country if I hadn't have gone through that.
And you have been so successful in your recovery from addiction. Congratulations on that. A huge achievement. How did you do it?
I don't know. It's 17 years now. I know it sounds like such a long time, but it's so weird because I don't ever...
Have you become very boring?
No, I don't think I am. I mean, the thing is, I suppose on the outside, people probably think, oh my God, she had such a fun life before. What the hell is going on now? But I love it. I mean, I get up at 6 a.m. and I go to flea markets. I know that doesn't sound that appealing, but it's appealing to me. And I suppose I am quite boring. I go to bed at 10, 11 and, I've got dogs and kids and it's very normal, that's what you want to call it, but I don't know. Yeah, it's fun. I'm having a nice time.
It's brilliant, and I know you're very proud of all your kids. Can you believe that your daughter, your eldest daughter, is almost as famous as you are now, Daisy?
She's loads more famous than me. I mean, people call me Daisy all the time, which is so insulting for her. But I don't know. Everyone always comes up to me and says, "Oh my God, you're Daisy Lowe's mum." I get it all the time. So, but yeah, she's doing really well, and she's 30. She's just turned 33, so she's, it's mad having a 33-year-old as a daughter. But she's, she's a lovely person, so it's great.
Look, Pearl, it's been such a treat to have you on the show. Do come and see us in the studio. Actually, you could redesign this studio because it's, frankly, very dated and could do with a spruce up.
I would love
the book
to.
is out now. I loved looking through it today. Highly recommended. It's called Faded Glamour by the Sea, but it's more glamour than faded, I've got to say. Congratulations also on getting that house done in a year to you and your other half, the amazing, the wonderful Pearl Lowe. Brilliant stuff. Well, that was Mark Meets. Lots more to get through in this programme. In just a few minutes in the news agenda, how do you feel about being snooped on with cameras and microphones in the workplace? That's something that Amazon are considering doing with their drivers. A camera that films you as you're driving, watches how quickly and how safely you are actually doing your job at the wheel. So we'll cover all of that shortly, plus another game show. But it's almost that time, folks. Here we go. It's the papers. Yes, indeed. At 10:30 every Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we will bring you a comprehensive look at tomorrow's papers and full panel reaction. So let's start, shall we, with the Metro. And the Metro are saying the following. Brits feel the pinch. Rise in shoplifting to survive. The cost of living crisis is creating a new wave of first-time shoplifters stealing to eat, according to retail experts. As inflation heads towards 10% and energy bills rise, it's forcing some families to choose between heating or eating their homes. And stores say that thieves are not the usual suspects and are taking less expensive items. Also, Pep pips it to the post. Easy for you to say. Pep Guardiola has successfully won the Premier League with Manchester City. Congratulations to them and all of our viewers on the blue side of Manchester. Let's go to The Independent next, and this is also cost of living as well. And, of course, it's going to be a story that will dominate across the board. They're not only covering the cost of living, we've got UK unprepared for food crisis sparked by war. Advisor warns ministers must focus on price hikes and shortages. And City's unlikely comeback clinches title. OK, Sebastian, where should we go next? Let's have the Telegraph now. Gene-edited crops to help ease Ukraine food crisis. Ministers say speeding up approval for new method will guarantee British food supplies. The production of gene-edited crops is to be accelerated to help guarantee British food supplies continue in the wake of the conflict in Ukraine. How do you feel about eating genetically modified broccoli? It hasn't got my tummy rumbling, I've got to say. Also, head of civil service facing Partygate flack. Jesus, we're not still talking about that, are we? And NHS wait lists may be twice as long as reported. OK, the next cost of living help on hold as PM focuses on Partygate. That sounds like a rather politically loaded headline, if you ask me. Government is preparing to defend Boris Johnson against the long-awaited Sue Gray report into illegal parties in Downing Street, which could be published as soon as tomorrow. And I've got to say, I cannot wait for that soap opera to come to a swift end. We've got much bigger fish to fry. And let's be honest, old Sir Beer Starmer has as much of a case to answer as Bojo himself. The Daily Mail now. PM allies accuse Sue Gray of playing politics. On the eve of Partygate report, they blast toxic briefings and insist it was her who requested a meeting with Boris. Make sure you get full coverage all day tomorrow on GB News in relation to the Sue Gray report publication. You won't want to miss Dan Wootton at 9. The Guardian next. Children's mental health in crisis as cases rocket to a record high. A toll of 400,000 patients triggers alarm over scale of problems since COVID. Hate to say, I told you so. City roar back to win title in day of wild drama. And work is the best way out of the cost of living crisis, says the PM. A negative headline in The Guardian, but will be applauded by many watching this programme, I suspect. And I think those are our front pages. So thank you so much to the team. That's an overview of what Fleet Street have for us. Leilani Dowding, it's all about the cost of living crisis. And I don't know if there's much the government can do.
Well, the government kind of put us there in the first place, didn't they, with quantitative easing, i.e. printing money, lockdowns and all the rest of it. And, you know, we keep on hearing that it's because of the war now. So it's like they don't want to take responsibility. It's all the war. That's all we're hearing about. What about what they've been doing for the last 2 years? What about the sanctions that have been put in place? So
borrowing £500 billion,
yeah.
Shutting the economy down on and off for 2 years. Go figure.
Exactly.
I mean, this is the issue, isn't it? That when we had lockdowns and when we had mask mandates and vaccine mandates, it was all sold to us as very sort of low cost.
Right.
That, you know, this is a small price to pay. Turns out it was a pretty big price.
Well, I said that originally. I said I'm not taking part in any of this. I'm not playing along with any of these games. And I called it out from the beginning. I said it's the wrong move. It's the wrong move. That's it. It's the wrong move. You're going to absolutely decimate the economy. And look what's happened. Decimated.
So, Rebecca Jane, where do we go from here? You're the Chancellor in my dreams.
Oh, wonderful, darling.
Sadly, not quite as well heeled as he is. Could do with a few of his millions, I'm sure. But what do the government do? Because, you know, I've got people watching this show who are going through a horrible time.
Yeah, goodness knows, because they've created an absolute mess of a situation. I know that there's no rocket science in making that explanation. However, what on earth do we actually do now? They have to step in, they have to do something. But, you know, they got it massively wrong with COVID. And my concern is that it's the same people making the same decisions, and so they're probably going to get it all wrong all over again.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please
Start scrapping the green energy taxes because, you know, with fuel prices going up, that's going to affect the farmers' tractors, you know, ploughing the fields, everything. I live in the countryside. I've seen what the farmers have said. This whole insanity with red diesel not being allowed with the building industry anymore. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think that's right. You do wonder whether Boris's green agenda is teetering on the brink now, Mike.
I don't think he believes in it anyway. Even David Cameron said, get rid of the green crap, didn't he? That was a famous quote from David Cameron. So there's a point of view in the Tory party, it's all nonsense.
Yeah.
But you've just pointed out that The Guardian have got a headline, work is the best way out of cost of living crisis, says PM. And they've printed that because they think that that's condemnatory of people who got the idea. I tell you what, it's going to be harder times coming soon, I think I'll work harder, or I'll work longer, or I'll get another job. I mean, to me, it's for me.
Did somebody say that yesterday? Said that the way out of this is to go and get another job?
It was a government minister 2 days ago, female government minister, who said, well, people can always, get... That's what I've always done in my life. Ever since I was a young reporter, I thought, I haven't got enough money, I'll go and get a job in a petrol station at the weekends, which is what I used to do.
Hang on a minute, Mike. Not quite so simple. That's not quite so simple. A lot of people out there are working as hard as they absolutely can.
Yeah, well, that may be the case, but we've got maximum employment at the moment, but maximum number of vacancies because people simply don't want to fill them. Did you see a column this morning in the Sunday newspaper about a lady who does a similar job to what we're doing now, but has had to stop because the company concerned, the broadcasting which she works for, can't get late drivers to take her home because the drivers in the company they employ say they don't want to work after 6 o'clock anymore. There's a malaise in this country where people, and I think it must have started with COVID and now it's going on, the world owes you a living. There is a definite feeling that the government can bail us out on anything we do. Why should we have to work all these long hours we did before? The civil service won't go back to work in their offices. Everybody wants to get on the peloton at home. And that is honestly sweeping through society. Why should we all work like we used to do? And the other headline that interests me, cost of living help on hold as PM focuses on Partygate. Haven't we in this studio been beating the drum for months saying if you stop dealing with trivia, which is Partygate...
I don't agree that it's trivia.
If we stop dealing with trivia, it's Partygate, we could get on with the big issues like the war in the Ukraine, like the cost of living crisis, like all the other problems we've got, but no. Mr Johnson, the Prime Minister, has to keep cancelling calls with world leaders from America and from France. Yes, he does.
Absolutely not.
Yes, he does.
This is just...
Because he was asked to go to meetings to sort out Partygate, which we now know is going to be sorted out. And the mystery...
The person at the head of our country has lied to us.
Well, that's not yet been proven. That has not yet been proven. I'm sorry, until Sue Gray's report comes out, that has not yet been proven.
What about the leader of the opposition who changes his story every 10 minutes?
Yeah, from 5 to 20 in 2 weeks.
None of them are any good.
He's worse at maths than Diane Abbott.
Yeah, he certainly is, yeah.
Nobody's any good. This is my only problem, is that I'm all for sacking Boris, but the problem is the rest of them are all a pile of poop.
Come on, this is a family show.
I know, I'm trying. That's the problem. We've got absolutely nobody coming through the ranks who's actually going to be any decent. I don't agree that Partygate is a trivial issue. I think it's actually a really big issue.
No, it is trivial.
Fundamentally, our Prime Minister is dishonest.
No.
How on earth can we trust
That's
the
not been
word
proven.
he says?
That has not been proven. He didn't even take the cake out of the box. And he walked into the cabinet room where he works to be told, oh, it's your birthday, we'll sing happy birthday to you. Poor old Rishi Sunak, who's a teetotaler, never touched a drop of alcohol in his life.
An alien idea.
Was also fined for getting involved in a party. Have you ever been to a party with alcohol? Have you, Leilani, ever been to a party with alcohol?
Yes, I've also been through many parties through lockdown as well, so I can't say that...
The point is that they were telling us what to do, and then they went and did the complete opposite.
Don't agree.
You can't trust a word that they say.
Don't agree.
You can't.
He
No one
works
should
and
have
lives
listened
there.
anyway.
Works and lives there.
I tell you what, we will. There is a day of reckoning coming, and the Sue Gray report is expected in the next 24 hours. We will bring you a reaction to it, of course, here on GB News. Let's stay on the issue of work, a story raised there by Mike Parry from tomorrow's Guardian. One of the biggest companies in the world, Amazon, is now using cameras with artificial intelligence to monitor its workers. They've installed them in the delivery trucks, and they will detect dangerous behaviour, including hard braking, speeding and driver distraction. It will also send them voice alerts if any of these are breached. Protesters, including the charity and pressure group Big Brother Watch, say this excessive, intrusive and creepy worker surveillance should be put on hold. So is this technology an amazing positive step, or is it bringing us closer to Big Brother and 1984? Rebecca Jane.
If you can't trust your employees, get rid of them. It's absolutely ridiculous. Also, where is GDPR in all of this? The second point
Now, remind us what GDPR is.
Basically, it's permission to do these kinds of things. And the way that employers sneak all of this stuff in, they put it in a contract in the name of business. You're just spying on people because you want to make more profit out of them. You need to start.
How do you make more
trust.
profit out of them by spying on them? I mean, listen, I don't agree with it.
Because it's not just about breaking a bit harder and doing this. What they're actually trying...
He's gone for a toilet break
Exactly,
and he took 11 minutes.
Exactly.
That's
They've taken another 3 minutes on their break, hammer it down. If you treat your employees like that, you'll have an absolute mass walkout.
I mean, listen, Mike, you've worked for Kelvin McKenzie, for God's sakes.
Don't mention it. Anyway, please, go on.
So you know about having no workers' rights?
Well, it wasn't workers' rights. It was the method of management, which, if it happened in this day and age, believe me, people who ran their business like that would end up in jail, OK? But, look, on this one, I don't agree with it. And also, what a distraction. If you know there's a camera inside your van, and I saw an Amazon van this morning outside my apartment block, and what a distraction that you've got to think about the camera first and then your duties to driving that van secondly. Do you see what I mean? Oh, I better not brake too hard. Yeah, supposing a child runs into the road, OK? What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to think first about how should I react, how will the camera see it, or the life of the child. I think
living
it's
the life in
disgraceful.
complete fear of how am I going to get judged for this? Am I going to get told that I didn't brake hard enough? Am I going to get told that I didn't brake fast enough?
Yes.
Like living in complete and utter fear. It's more control that's come from COVID
I will
times.
stop using Amazon if they introduce these sort of methods, because as far as I'm concerned, it's almost dystopian. It's almost going into the next century of mind control of your employees. You know what I mean?
I will say that the Amazon drivers around my area kind of speed through the village a little bit, but I do not think that they should be having cameras inside their cab, inside the van, watching them. Maybe dash cams, that possibly, but also definitely not at work. And I know that Amazon have done that in the States, installed cameras around the workplace, and not microphones. They shouldn't be listening into people's private conversations. If somebody calls on a phone that's not held, they're not holding, it's totally legal for them to pick it up, providing it's in a little holder. They shouldn't be listening to any of their conversations either.
A mate of mine made a sizable fortune out of inventing that black box that you can put in cars now. Which is used by insurance companies to find out how you drive. Right. It's particularly useful for young drivers, OK? And that's as far as it needs to go. Yeah. And that is like the black box in an aeroplane. It relates, you know, all the technology in the car, how it's been going and all that. You don't need it any more than that. And they're for safety purposes, because young kids do go around speeding, and if they do that, it means their insurance policy goes up. So there's a practical use to them, you see what I mean?
And Leilani Dowding, what concerns me also about this, it's not just dystopian 1984, but it's got a flavour of the Chinese Communist Party about it as well, hasn't it? Because Chinese people live under CCTV surveillance. And basic rights, such as buying a bus ticket, is now decided by the government.
Exactly. It becomes like a social credit system, doesn't it? So they're going to, you know, like these have said, that if you brake suddenly because, you know, a dog runs out or a cat runs out or a bird or whatever, then obviously you're going to brake harder, and what happens? That you get a lower score at work, or
do you
like
kill
you
the
lose
dog,
your
or do you, and supposing the driver's thinking, I'm not going to brake now because I might break a couple of parcels which are behind my head in my van. You know, and that would be picked up on my camera. I think it's an absolute disgrace.
Well, I think it's a disgrace. Let me tell you, I'm very disappointed in my colleagues here at GB News, because we are the fastest growing current affairs network in the country. But I'm afraid we've got CCTV cameras all over our offices and in the dressing rooms. And I didn't know about this until just before I came on air. The boss wants a word with me, and HR are going to be there as well. Take a look at this. Well, it was really fun working here while it lasted. Stick around, I might be here after the break when we'll do a game show.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very, very interesting conversation throughout the show. Thank you so much for your many emails across a range of topics. Lots of love for the panel tonight. Also, Chris says the cost of living maybe is related to paying for the war in Ukraine. Humanity, yes, but billions on keeping the war going, no. And a green levy is a quarter of people's bills. I'm not sure many realise it is that much. Thank you so much. Avril says, please give Calvin Robinson a big hug from me. He's been cancelled by the Church of England. And shoplifting made legal by the police chief's comment last week to not charge shoplifters. Annie is not happy about this. There are economic crises all around the world. Get educated and get real. Well, look, the clock's against us. The next King and Queen, Charles and Camilla, are going to make a guest appearance on EastEnders. It's to mark the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. It will air on June the 2nd at the start of the long bank holiday weekend. They were filming at the fictional Albert Square Jubilee Street Party when they visited the soap set in March. In the scene, they'll be greeted by Queen Vic landlord Mick Carter, played by Danny Dyer, and his wife Linda. But is this a step too far for publicity, or does it make our next King and Queen more accessible? Leilani, what do you think?
I think it's a little bit random, but I mean, as long as it's not Meghan and Harry doing it, I don't care. That's all. But
you'll get cancelled for criticising Harry. No, Meghan, you're not allowed to criticise Meghan.
Oh, no, of course not. But the thing is, though, is it realistic? Would she ever appear in some... Charles and Harry, Charles and Camilla ever appear in a random place in real life, not on EastEnders, in real life?
They would, wouldn't they? Because this is it. They're out and about amongst the people all the time. Yeah. You know, they support dozens and hundreds of charities. They go to things all the time. I think you're absolutely right. The proof is in the pudding. Let's see how it turns out. Because I wasn't a great fan of the Queen getting involved in the James Bond sketch when she allegedly jumped out of a helicopter. Do you remember the one?
It wasn't really on brand, was it?
No, it wasn't. I mean, so walking down a corridor with Daniel Craig as James Bond is fine. But then they got silly and they threw a dummy out of a helicopter to make it look like the Queen had parachuted down to Earth. And they took it too far. So I think it depends in context. What I do think is, having been an observer of Charles for years, I covered the first tour that Charles and Diana did in North Wales after their marriage, because, of course, he's Prince of Wales. And that was the moment Charles suddenly realised, Diana seems to be a bit more popular than me. A bit more popular. They completely ignored Charles
Yeah, of course,
altogether
that doesn't surprise me.
And just went for Diana, and he's been very grumpy ever since. But the last couple of times I've seen him out...
you.
Yeah. Last couple of times I've seen him out and about with Camilla in the crowds, I've warmed to how, friendly he's been and how, pulling a pint of beer, all that kind of stuff. So hopefully he'll have had some control over it and it'll work.
All right, fair enough. Rebecca Jane, yes or no? Is it a desperate move by Charles to go into Albert Square?
Huge, desperate, completely.
Don't do it. You're not having it.
against it?
RJ is not having it. Well, let's crack on because I've got another big story for you. Regular viewers of the channel will know that one of my colleague Nigel Farage's many fans revealed that she has a tattoo of him on one of his recent shows. It actually appeared that she loves him that much.
Oh, God.
That is Nigel's biggest fan, and Nigel's face is on her leg. Lucky Nigel. And I think that's a pretty good likeness.
It's very weird.
It's like Nigel Farage crossed with Miss Piggy.
Well, there's a bit of that going on. Well, Nigel's, of course, got so many fans, including all of the viewers to his show every weekday night, Monday to Thursday at 7. Farage, he's back tomorrow at 7. But I've got to tell you, full disclosure, that I have a tattoo of my hero on my body. And here it is in all its glory. Take a look. So that's my arm. And you might want to just have a little bit of a zoom in.
Aww.
It's my friend and colleague Dan Wootton, and it says Dan Forever. And it's on my arm. I won't tell you where Eamon Holmes is.
No, I don't think we want to know.
But he's in a private place, and he's back tomorrow, of course, at 7. Brilliant stuff, Dan Wootton, of course, back tomorrow night at 9 o'clock for Dan Wootton tonight. Well, let's crack on now with our Great British Game Show. Can you at home and our panel here guess which celebrities are actually represented by these bad tattoos? Let's play a game of Tat Who. And who
Celine
is this
Dion.
first celebrity? Who could it be?
Celine Dion.
Well done, it is Celine Dion. Her heart will go on. It looks more like Amy Winehouse to me. OK, next celebrity. It's an American comedian.
Oh, it looks like it. What's that woman?
Generous.
Jenny Agutter?
No, not Jenny Agutter.
Who's that British MP that curled her hair wrong on Big Brother?
No, Jenner.
Anne Widdecombe.
It's not Anne Widdecombe. Any other guesses? She was in a show called The Golden Girls.
Golden Girls.
Oh, no.
Betty something.
Well done.
Betty.
I'm going to give you the points.
That's terrible.
Betty White.
Betty White.
That is
Betty
terrible.
There she is. How about this pop star? Here we go.
Oh, dear.
It's another dodgy one, I'm afraid.
It's not posh, is it?
I actually can't even give you a
Beckham.
clue because I haven't got... I don't know too much about this woman.
What about the tie around the neck? Is that a
Her
clue?
first name is Avril.
Levine.
Yes, it's Avril Lavigne. Rather a desperate interpretation.
dear.
How about this other celebrity? Don't want to give it away.
Prince. It's Prince.
No, it's MJ.
Oh, it's Michael Jackson.
It's Michael Jackson. How about the famous comedian next?
Oh, dear.
Who could this be?
Oh, yeah, that's
well,
Will.
good, that.
Will.
That is, it is Will Ferrell. Well
Thank
done.
you.
Ron
Will
Burgundy.
Ferrell. Yeah.
That's right, the ultimate anchorman, my hero. OK, how about this celebrity? Who could this be?
Oh, dear.
Oh, that's Stephen Hawking.
Yes.
It is unmistakable. That's pretty good, actually. I think they've done a good job there.
Yeah.
How about our next famous person?
Oh, it's Harry Potter.
Harry Potter.
Well, it looks like it could be Harry Potter, but you're going to need to go back to the 60s, actually.
Oh.
And actually one of your heroes, Mike.
It's not a Beatle, is it?
Oh,
Can't be a Beatle. Can't be a
one of the
Beatle.
Beatles?
Paul McCartney.
It's not McCartney.
Lennon.
Lennon.
It's John Lennon.
Not Lennon. That is not John Lennon.
Famous John Lennon glasses, but
What a load of
a bit more Potter than Lennon, let's be honest. How about our next celebrity?
Oh, yeah, that's the Scottish former leader of the SNP.
It is Alex Salmond.
Alex Salmond, yeah.
OK, let's go back to the world of music now for our penultimate celebrity.
Oh.
Yeah.
She's got a very husky
Miley
voice.
Cyrus.
It's Bros.
It's not Bros, no.
It is.
Well, you're showing your age there.
I am, but yeah.
It's not the
Miley
Bros.
Cyrus.
It is Miley Cyrus.
So bad. So bad.
Not the best. They've even they've somehow got the wrong nationality somehow. So that's tricky.
Huge.
And then last but not least,
It's Rowan Atkinson.
It is.
it is Mr. Bean.
Mr. Bean.
Well, let me tell you that it has been
Dear gosh.
a lively show. I can't thank you enough for your company tonight. And do stick around because I'll be doing headliners in a couple of minutes at 11 o'clock. But Rebecca Jane, Mike Parry, Leilani, we love you guys. Come back soon. Thanks for watching. See you soon.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is going to be bright to start for some central and eastern parts, but cloudy for most with showery rain. Let's get the details. That'll be the picture first thing in the southwest, where cloud will have pushed in, bringing some showery bursts of rain. It should be a fairly mild morning though. 1 or 2 showers are possible in the southeast and around London, though it should be drier here than further west. Sunshine will be at a premium. Whilst much of Wales will start fairly cloudy with some showers, we could have some brighter skies in the far east of the country. A largely cloudy picture in the northwest too. Here we can expect further showers to push in, perhaps heavier and more persistent for Cumbria, and sunnier or brighter breaks will be fairly limited. Brighter in the northeast though. Here it should be a dry start for most, though notice a few showers in the west will edge their way in as we go through the morning. Plenty of showers across much of Scotland first thing on Monday. Orkney and Shetland will be wetter with heavier, more persistent rain, but this will clear quite quickly. It'll be a largely cloudy start for Northern Ireland. Showers here too, heaviest towards the west, but we are likely to have some showers feeding eastwards through the morning. Further showers pushing in from the west through the morning with some more persistent rain arriving in the southeast, turning heavier later. And that's how the weather is shaping up for Monday morning.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed.